All right, let's go.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Fight the Burnout. Today, I'm interviewing Veronica. I'm not even going to try and pronounce your last name again. Horrible with names, but this is okay. So, Veronica and I know each other from back when she was my group leader coach at Date with Destiny, and she did some amazing stuff, and we've stayed in touch through our group from that, and she's been willing and honored us with her presence today. So thank you, Veronica. But I'll let you tell everybody about who you are, what you do, kind of your backstory, and what you do now as well. Because I actually don't know what you do for career-wise.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. All right, so where do I start? Well, I'm French, actually. So my name, the real way, would be Veronique Ficheux. And that's okay because I reply to everything because I've been living in Asia for nearly 27 years. As you can imagine, my name is a bit of a stumbling block on a lot of people.
Yeah.
So generally, it's come down to V.
V. Okay, V it is.
Right. So V it is. It works for everyone. As I said, I've been in Asia for nearly 27 years. I moved to Hong Kong in 1993. And it was interesting that your topic is burnout because that's definitely something I'm familiar with. It's Hong Kong being what it is, and it's a crazy place. And yeah, so I lived in Hong Kong for nearly 22 years.
Oh, wow.
I also have lived in Singapore, and right now I am very, very blessed because I get to live in Bali.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I haven't been there yet, but it is on the list.
You need to come visit.
I will. Now that I know you're there, I'll definitely be coming to visit.
It's difficult to be stressed and burnt out here, but it happens to some people. So, I guess professionally, I used to be in finance. I actually was a fund manager for quite a few years. When I came to Hong Kong, I was in fund management. My specialty was stocks, growth stocks at a reasonable price. Wow. So I used to travel all around the region, visiting companies, figuring out what worked for them. And then I actually experienced burnt out. I got to the point where I was so burnt out, I felt like my brain was stuck in molasses type thing. Nothing was moving, my brain was not even processing the information I was getting. So one day, I came upon a coach, one that was fairly well known. Her name was Cheryl Richardson. She was one of the first famous coaches in the US. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. Well, that's kind of what I do, and I really enjoy this. So I started learning or studying to become a coach in 1999. In 2001, I walked into my first Tony Robbins event, and I joke that they've never been able to get rid of me because I keep coming back. So I've pretty much worked every position there is in those events as volunteer. And these days I am blessed to be a trainer for Robbins for the past over 10 years. Funny enough, and this is for, as they say in French, la petite histoire, the little story. I was actually promoted to trainer at the one and only event that Tony did in Bali.
Oh, wow.
10 years ago.
Wow.
Isn't that's just like, and actually thinking about it, it might be exactly 10 years ago. Then I moved to Bali 5 years later. That was not for the same reasons, but it's a funny one. Since I quit my full-time job in finance in 2002, and since then I've basically been working in empowerment. It sounds weird to say I'm an empowerment coach, but when I look at whatever I've been doing, it always comes down to the same thing, which is empowering people to do who they are, right? And so when I look through all the things that I've learned through those years, it all comes down to this empowerment.
Yeah.
And for people to be true to themselves, because the biggest hurt, the biggest pain I see from people is holding masks in place, and it takes so much energy as well.
Yeah, I say this all the time. Like I call myself a performance coach now because I'm like, I get you to take and I get you to perform, in your stuff. Most of my stuff is training people to get into the police force and giving them a good foundation. But it
Yeah.
is so true. Everybody walks around with all these masks on. And I'm
Yeah.
like, it's like, you got all these masks. I mean, I've done Tony, I've done Landmark, and Landmark calls it like the one guy referred to it like glasses. You've got all these different glasses on, and I call it a mask, or I call it anchors. Anchors that are dragging behind you. I was like, as soon as you can start to release those anchors, you start to actually go faster and faster and faster.
Yeah.
Next thing, it's like, I'm free. But yeah, and it's interesting you say, the masks is a huge one.
Yeah. Yeah, the masks are very big. And also I've developed over the past few years more interest in mental health, real mental health, helping people heal traumas and old wounds and things that's holding them back from being the true themselves, right? And a lot of these actually happen before you turn 8 or even 7, right? So that's something that I've done a lot of work on in the past few years. I was chatting to someone on Facebook recently, and she says, "Oh, can we speak later, because we were supposed to have a conversation." She says, "I'm going through a rough patch." And I went, "Well, rough patch are kind of my specialties. Can I help you?"
Yeah.
Right. So, and for me, that's always the thing, right? Can I help you?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny you say about the rough patches and the trauma and that, because that's why I ended up leaving the place, was because of all the trauma in that. And now I realize that all that trauma that I saw and dealt with was all, it was all serious, and it did affect me then and there, but it also linked all the way back to, like you said, before you were 8, things that happened to me when I was a kid set me up that I dealt with them in the way that I did, like the emotions and the not feeling connected and the not feeling like people cared about me or people were judging me. And I remember at Tony, my biggest question that I asked myself all the time is, are people judging me? And I look back now, and it all has to do with the fact that my dad went off to chiropractic school when I was like 5. But then it was like, I felt like I wasn't helping people enough when I was in the place, and in turn, because I was putting so much effort into that, I got burned out. Because I felt like I wasn't doing enough when I really was. And it's interesting about that. So V, tell me, what would you, if you had to define burnout, what would you define burnout as, for in your words, for yourself?
For me, the way I experienced it and saw it, it's literally exhaustion on every front. So it's like, I do not have another drop to give you. Right. I do not have another drop of energy to give to anything. And it usually starts with, I don't have a drop to give myself. Right. Because what we always forget is, and everybody says that, and it's such a cliche, put the oxygen mask on you first. Right. And I see that so much with healers and with yoga teachers. Of course, I live in the ultra spiritual capital of the world, so it's a little bit different. But people that are here to help, coaches, they don't take care of themselves. It's like, okay, so it's funny you mentioned your dad in chiropractic school, because my parents were both doctors.
Yeah.
Right? My dad was a GP, and he smoked, he drank, and he was overweight. And he always used to say, do what I say, not what I do.
Yep.
Right?
My parents used to say the same thing. I used to say the same thing. And now I go, nope, I'm not doing it myself. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
I need to go do that.
And it goes back to the Gandhi quote, right? You remember the story about the sugar?
No.
Okay, so this is a great little story. So this woman asked Gandhi, she actually took her son had diabetes, and he kept eating sugar. And so he idolized Gandhi. So they went to visit Gandhi. Gandhi had like visiting hours, right? 2 weeks it took them on trains and buses and everything to get to Gandhi. And she gets in front of Gandhi and she says, please, please, please ask my son to stop eating sugar. It will kill him. And Gandhi thinks about it and says, come back in 3 weeks or 2 weeks. I can't remember the exact story, but the gist is there. So she goes home, and then she comes back 2 weeks later. And he says, oh, I remember you. He turns to the son and he says, stop eating sugar. And the son goes, yes, yes, Mahatma, yes, right? And so the mother asks, well, why couldn't you tell him that 2 weeks ago? And his answer was, because 2 weeks ago I was still eating sugar.
Yeah. You can't
Right?
tell him to stop eating sugar if he's eating sugar himself.
Exactly. So in a way, it's a certain integrity, right? And I'm as guilty, or maybe more than a lot of other people, with that, because it's very true. I teach people how to take care of themselves and everything, and sometimes I forgot to do it myself.
Yeah.
Right? And in this past month or month and a half now, I'm not really confined. We're not in lockdown the way you guys are,
Yeah.
but we're not supposed to really go out or anything like that, right? And when I'm here anyway in Bali, when I'm not traveling and with the other work that I do as a trainer, I don't tend to go very many places, right? But because there is so much going on outside in Zooms and webinars and everything, I find myself being literally on, learning, teaching, and everything from 8 a.m. in the morning to 11 p.m. every day.
Yeah.
And then I look at how much I sleep, and I say, okay, if I slept between 11 p.m. and 8 a.m., that would be great, but I don't, right? And that's a good hint for me when I start doing that for long periods. That's a very good hint that I need to stop.
Yeah.
Some things need to give.
Yeah.
Right. And I need to take care of myself first. So that includes things like dragging my son out for a swim in the middle of the day. Because I still have to do the 8:30 call, so I can't do it in the morning. Plus, he's a teenager, and he doesn't wake up this early either.
Yeah. No, it's funny. We do that. We get in this cycle, and the best of us get in this thing of where we're like, oh yeah, you go, and you're like, hey, hang on a second. How long ago was it that I actually looked after myself and I actually did something for me? And so, yeah.
Yeah. Or how long ago was it that I actually ate the right meal?
Yeah.
Stopped and cooked one. I'm lucky I don't really cook. Actually, I find this is a perfect time to be fasting because I'm busy anyway. And
it's funny because I've actually ended up going back to a normal day job just to bring in some more income and stuff as well. And I've found that I've been eating worse since I started doing that than when I was at home on my own, because when I was at home, I'd go, okay, cool. At 12, like even when I'm doing this job, I'm lucky I've got a little bit of flexibility with it because it's not super busy doing the security work at the hospital. But like at 12 o'clock, I'd eat. And then at like 6:30, I'd eat, and I'd have my meals, or like I meal prep all the time. Whereas now, because my wife's home, we're eating similar things, and I'm not eating what I used to. And so for a while I was like, my body was going, and so I ended up having to go, okay, cool, I need to get back to this structure and this routine of stuff. So yeah, it's
yes, exactly.
So going through the burnout yourself and realizing stuff, and obviously you realize that you need to look at in the last month that you needed it, so you're more aware of it and that. But for a lot of people out there, I know they aren't. Like they're like, oh my god, I'm feeling horrible, or maybe they have gone through it, but they're not sure how they actually got through it. What would you say that you've learned, or that you've learned and you do, or to overcome your burnout, as well as now prevent yourself from getting back to that stage that you were at?
Yeah. So the first thing one of the first thing I notice when I get close to that is I get very prickly. And I know as a woman, you say, oh, it's the hormones. I'm a little bit older than that, so I know it's not the hormones. And I get really easily irritated, right? Like, like this. And so that's usually a hint that something is out of balance for me, right? But it's about knowing yourself, knowing where, same thing with you, right? You notice you're out of balance when you're not eating the right meal, right? We have lost track of literally being in touch with our bodies, except for exercising. And a lot of people do it because they have to, not because they enjoy. I'd rather not exercise if I'm not going to enjoy it, which probably explains why I'm a little, plump, fluffy, and I like it that way. But joke aside, so the things that I look at, and I ask my clients when they come see me as well. Usually, they come to me and they say, "I'm not feeling happy, and I don't know why." All right. Or that was my question, because I did go to therapy after I burned out. My first thing I say to my psychologist, I still remember, that was like 22 years ago. I'm not happy. I used to be happy all the time. I want it back. That was how I framed it, right? But when you think that, okay, I'm not happy, there's something that's not quite right, I always start with the body.
Yeah.
Right. You remember one of our mentors, right, always says physiology first, but really I start with the body. Do you sleep? How many hours do you sleep? Do you move your body? What makes you happy? Right? The exercises that make you happy won't be the same for some people. Love running, some people love dancing. Right? So that's usually where I start. It's the body. I use a technique called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I haven't, no.
It's also called the tapping. In the US, it's become very, very famous as tapping, right?
Somebody else I follow was talking about it, yeah.
Yeah. It's basically acupuncture without needles for emotions.
Oh, okay.
And it's super fast. It works really well. And what I love about it is that you have the power to use it anytime. You don't need me. Right. And as I said, I'm all about empowerment. Apparently, it's a bad business decision, because people should come to me every time they feel bad. But if they do, I'm like, I didn't do my job properly. Right. And when I learned this, I've known this technique for nearly 20 years now, and it's really, really helped shift how I feel about things. And you know, I'm happy to teach how to do it, but it might be funny on your podcast, but I've described it on the phone as well, so I think we can do that. The one thing with it is so simple that people forget to use it all the time. Right? And when I learned it, one of my mentors is a lady based in Hong Kong that's a really good friend of mine, and whenever I would tell her a problem, her first question was always, have you tapped on it? And it used to drive me crazy. And then I realized that's exactly what I asked my question. Did you tap on it?
It's funny that you say that, because that just brought up something that Tony said on our, like, one of the very first days of Date with Destiny. Is like, you normally see a mirror in somebody else of the thing that you don't like in yourself.
Yeah.
And so, like, with your coach, with her saying, have you tapped on it, you going, okay, this is exactly what I asked everybody else, but why am I not doing it?
Exactly. That's very true. And it's a reminder, right? So part of my part of the things as well is, for some people, it's different on people, right? I am not a very structured thinker per se. I have ADD, proudly, right? But it's problematic when there is so much happening in the world.
Yeah.
Right. And so I have a number of tools that I use to keep me aligned. For instance, in Bali, I drive a bike.
Yeah.
Right? A scooter.
Yeah.
The car's too complicated, blah, blah, blah. I drive a bike. What I found is that the only way for me to actually be completely present to what is going on with the eyes, the world around me, is for me to listen to an audiobook. Right? Because it occupies just enough of those spots in my brain that the rest of me can be entirely focused.
Yeah.
Right. It's not an excuse, and I hear everything because I never have it very, very loudly, and I use these, so, you know.
Yeah.
It's not, as I said, it's just, we all have our own coping mechanism.
Definitely.
We just don't realize we're doing it.
Yeah. Like mine's music. I love music, calms me down and can put me into complete different states all the time. I ride a motorcycle. That's literally what I ride every single day. For me, I put music on, and if I don't have music on, I start to, yours is audio, mine's music, because I'll start to
your brain wanders.
Yeah, my brain starts to wander, and sometimes it's really good, but in the city, if I don't, it can be distracting when I'm splitting down through lanes and I'm doing, you know, all the kind of different stuff. But if, like, I did a motorcycle trip around the US, and there was times where I turn it off so that my brain, I could process things and do that sense of meditation. So yeah, everybody has their different things, which is
exactly. So one of the first things for that is awareness, is really starting to make a little journal. These are the things that make me happy. Or these are the things that work for me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to share you something that I never show anyone.
Okay. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you get to see it.
It's a very special something. Not, but it is. And as a guy, you probably wouldn't recognize this, but this here.
Crochet.
Yeah, yeah, crochet. This, I spend so much time on webinars and things that I've actually just about finished crocheting an entire outfit. Keeps my hands busy. There's nothing complicated about the crochet I do in this specific case anyway, but it keeps enough busy that I can be completely focused on what I'm listening to.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'll just throw it away and take notes, right?
Yeah.
But I if I'm just with my notebook and trying to take notes and that's it, it's very, very difficult for me to stay present.
Yeah,
because there's so many other things here.
Yeah.
Another thing that works really, really well, and it's become very fashionable in the past 2 months, I hear it everywhere, is breathing. Box breathing. Have you heard of box breathing?
I use it and I tell my clients to do it all the time. It's a great thing for training, for exercise wise. If you've just done like some sprints, you've done some high intensity stuff, if you want to restructure your yourself, or like, so for my clients, I've got to do a run, then they have to go do push-ups, jump, then they have to do push-ups, and then they grip. So I'm like, as soon as you're done with your run, box breathing is going to get, so start doing it now. Get into that rhythm of the box breathing, because I've done it. I've found that I've actually done it. I heard about it from another ex-cop in the States, that one of her podcasts was with Mark Devine from the ex-Navy SEAL, and he talks about it. He calls it tactical breathing or box breathing. And I was like, when I heard it, I was like, oh, I've been doing that for years. When I was in the police and that, because it slow, and even when I was training, because it slows my breathing down, gets me back to breathe. And when I run, anytime I feel like my breathing's off, I start to go back to box. It is, like you said, and it's become huge in the last year.
Oh my God, it's everywhere. It's really funny. But the first time I heard it, somebody said, oh, let me teach you how to box breathe. And I'm thinking, I do that when I dive all the time. You're not supposed to hold your breath underwater.
No.
But it's just the rhythm that works for me.
It's interesting you said that. I never thought about that, because I've done like 500-600 dives by the time I was like 18.
Wow.
I grew up sailing around the world, and we had a commercial dive compressor on the boat. My parents loved diving. So my brother had like 400 dives by the time he was 16, 17. So, but yeah, it is. That's how you conserve air. You slow your rhythm down, and you can be doing the most, you can be going up against a complete tide, swimming as hard as you possibly can, and you're box breathing.
I have always done it naturally. I started diving very, very early, as soon as it was legal in France. Yeah. And that probably was before you were born, but never mind. And that's always been my normal, natural rhythm, right? And the 4-4-4 is about right for me in terms of diving, of breathing, and it's when I'm diving. And it's funny because breathing is a funny thing, right? You go to the doctor and they say inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. I can do it twice and I'm out of breath because it's way too fast.
Interesting.
I don't breathe this fast ever.
Interesting. Yeah. So as we can hear and we can tell, is that there's different things for different people, but also, taking some of these things that V does and trying them yourself. Because I know, like, the box breathing we have in common. I know for me, if I, like, sometimes I will, like, just before, like, we had this call, I was on the call with somebody else, and I had a little widgety thing, and I'm sitting there just fidgeting with it, and it is literally getting me to focus more. It's interesting, that you do things that you don't even notice.
When I was a fund manager and I was at the beginning of computers, right? I had Tetris on my computer. And I would spend hours and hours listening, not so much participating, but listening to market reports and all of that and company descriptions. And I would literally play Tetris. And I made myself roam for years because, I'm not giving it my full attention. But then I realized that it was keeping my fingers and my eyes occupied so I could focus on the hearing.
Interesting.
Right. And I'm also super visual. So, which is often the case with ADD people, not all, but most of them. When you're auditory, you're slower. And when you're kinesthetic, you're even slower. But I mean, in the tone of our conversation, I know both of us kind of are on the same level in terms of how quick things go and everything. Right. And I actually, I was listening to Mel Robbins. I love Mel Robbins. She's a great inspiration if you haven't heard her before. And she talks about that because she was diagnosed with ADD at 45. I mean, I haven't been diagnosed. I just know that I'm doing it, right? And it's okay.
We all have, and we all have probably.
And exactly, we all have it, and it's getting worse with technology and, you know, different things, and the phone here and this and that and the other. But it's knowing when to put everything away. Right. Also with the burnout is, as I said, I'm not great on structure, but I have more structure now because I know it works for me. So one of the big things somewhere on this, my desk is actually clean. That's surprising, isn't it? I always have like millions of things going on at the same time, right? Yeah, so I've got this, I've got these things going on, right? So I literally made my own book with it.
Yeah.
And all it does is, this is the dates. I wrote my goals. At the moment, my goals are over 3 months because business-wise, that's what works. You know, you want to be a bit short-term with what's going on. I write a quote for the day, something that really inspires me. I had the most amazing one yesterday. I was actually listening to Elizabeth Gilbert, and she said, resilience is our shared genetic and psychological inheritance.
That is a good quote.
I was like, I had to stop to actually take notes. You see, I take notes in colors, of course, because I'm a girl, right? But so I wrote a quote, and then I write what my goals are for today, what my targets are for today. So today you went on my targets because I know it's there, and I had to prep a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
And so you went on there, and then I have, at the moment, I'm working on content, for instance.
Yeah.
So I'm writing, okay, I need to write this. That's in my list. And then in the evening, which is the second half, I will write what my successes were. Right. And that includes little things like I took a break, or, you know, I ate a healthy meal. It doesn't have to be a big thing. This is the thing. Everybody thinks that everything has to be huge.
No.
Right.
The smallest things can make all the difference.
Exactly.
Especially when it comes to burnout. You know, if you are completely 100% like full on in burnout mode, literally the smallest thing of like, and I tell my clients this, to get out, like for me, you know, I think of burnout, it can almost be depression. Like when I think of burnout and people say, like when you were talking about what burnout is to you, I'm like, that for some people that's what their word is, depression.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if you want to get out of burnout, look for one light thing. Look for the light around you. I know Tony does an exercise on this, and I've been doing it for well longer than I even, you know, have been around Tony. I'm like, look for the light in the room. If you close your eyes and you instantly see dark, you need to start looking for the light, because when you close your eyes, you can still see light.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing with that for me is gratitude.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of gratitude. And I always tell people, start with the little things. You know, I'm grateful for the view. I have, the rice is growing. It's not quite out yet, but it's beautiful and green. Morning and night, but not right now because it's always cloudy at this hour. I have a view on the volcano.
Oh, nice.
Which is really pretty. It's a lovely view. So these are the things that you just, it's so small, right?
I tell people even smaller than that, even. You know, I tell myself 3 things I'm grateful for first thing in the morning now.
Yeah.
It's changed my life. And I go, even if you can't think of things that you're having one of those days, and I'm like, even just saying I'm grateful that I'm alive. I woke up. Because so many people around the world didn't wake up. And then I roll over, I see my wife, and I go, I'm grateful I have my wife. And then my puppy is normally laying right on my neck. Like my alarm goes off, and he will be anywhere on the bed, and he goes straight on my neck. I don't know why, but it just is like, yeah. And I'm like, I'm grateful for him coming up and giving me the snuggles first thing in the morning, every single morning, without fail. It is. And those are, you know, those can be my 3 things. And like you said, they're not very big, but they have so much power.
They don't have to. There's so much power in gratitude, in the little things, right? And that's also grounding. It's really relevant when you're in burnt out, because you're all over the place. So just thinking about what grounds me, right? Walking barefoot. I mean, I'm lucky. I'm in a weather where I barely wear shoes anytime, right? It's actually a challenge when I go to Robin's event because I have to wear shoes. Most
Yeah, I can relate. I grew up on a sailboat. I went 5 years without pretty much wearing shoes.
Yeah, exactly. So you completely get what I'm saying, right?
We're like, you're gonna get worms. You're gonna get, I'm like, man, I like walking barefoot.
Well, I wouldn't do it on the street here, but at home and around this area, yeah, no problem. Everybody walks barefoot anyway. But it's just a little thing, right? It's just inhaling.
Yeah,
I'm grateful. There's 21% oxygen today.
Yeah, I'm
right?
grateful I can walk. I've got 2 legs.
2 legs.
I've got 2 arms.
Yeah, that is very true.
There's so many people out there that don't, but yeah, no. So V, let me ask you this. So I'm a huge why guy. I like to ask people what their why is of what they do. Because what I've found is that when you're real concrete and certain on your why, and they do change and they're different for different aspects, but when you're certain on your whys, it drives you harder than anything. And even when it's hard, it still drives you. And when it's easy, it drives you even more. So what would you say your why would be that drives you in those easy and hard times?
I think it has changed a little bit, but it's really all about empowerment and others. I'm a nurturer at heart.
Yeah.
One of the teams I work with, I've earned the nickname of Mama V. So I was a mom way before I got a child, actually. Yeah. And for me, it's really empowering. It's empowering people is when the penny drops for someone or they hang up and they feel better. My job's done. That's all it is. Life has ups and downs for everyone, right? Me as much as everybody else, maybe sometimes more, because with the nurturing comes a little bit too much trust sometimes, and I refuse to let go of that. So well, then I'll pay for it, right?
I can relate to that one. Yeah, you're like, yeah.
But it's really, my why is, I really believe that I am here to help alleviate suffering. And that is Tony's words, but it's the same as well. Is I hate when people suffer. I hate when animals suffer as well, but you know what I mean. Yeah. And so, and I know this is where sometimes I get even frustrated because I know I can help, but you can't force people to take your help.
I know, I get so frustrated. I'm like, I can help you so well, but you
and I are soulmates.
You have to want it, and it's like,
yes, I can't do the work for you. You have to do it for yourself. Yeah. Because otherwise you have no ownership, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like my why is I don't want anybody else to experience the pain that I have in the past. That's my why. And it powers me in everything.
It empowers you, but at the same time, think about it this way. Without these pains, who would you be?
And that's exactly how I live. I go, I am like, and for a long time, even before I went to Tony, even afterwards, it would come back, and that it was always like, oh, the police and all this happened and all this blah blah. My wife would be like, yeah, but look where you are now. I was like, yeah, but then as soon as I went to the Tony event, it just, for some reason, with all of it, it just lit a fire, and it was like, yes, this is all happening. All of this has set me to be exactly right where I am right now for this reason.
Yeah, it's happening for me.
Yeah, it's all for me. My past is not creating my future. I'm creating my future, and the past is helping me to be who I am right now, so I can then create my future how I want it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and helping you help others for the same reason.
Exactly.
You can relate.
And yeah, so it's awesome, isn't it? So let me ask you this, V. If say there's somebody listening or watching, and they're unsure of their why. So, I know a lot of young people, but even say somebody who's gone through burnout, and they're like, I don't want to keep doing what I'm doing, and I'm not enjoying life, and that midlife crisis, whatever you want to, wherever they're at in life, but they're unsure of what they want to do, / their why or their purpose. What advice would you give them to help them, figure it out?
Well, one of them is, what did you love to do when you were 10 or earlier? Right? What's fun and exciting? Yeah. And I think sometimes we put a lot of weight on ourselves, thinking I have to only do what's my passion, right? Or but when you look at what lights you up, whether it makes money or not, that's part of your why.
Yeah.
Right? That's part of your purpose. And you can live your purpose in many, many ways. And I think one of the things that these times are teaching us is how important even the little ways are.
Mm.
Right? If you're burnt out and if you're like, I never want to do this job again, I feel the same way about certain things, that's okay. You don't have to. Most of us are way intelligent enough to actually be doing so many other things.
Yeah.
As much as possible, do something that at the end of the day, you know you've done something that contributed, made you feel good, made you smile.
Yeah. Contributed, made you feel good, made you smile. I love that.
And it, as I say, you said you went back to work, as at the hospital, right, as a security guard.
Yeah.
Well, that's bloody needed, and it's not necessary. It's not necessarily a place where you might feel super uplifted for it, but they're probably uplifted by your presence.
Yeah. It's interesting you bring that up because I was actually going to bring it up. Before I was a cop, I did security for about 2 years. It burned me out then. And I was like, I'm never, ever going back to doing security. Never. I won't do it. Then this happened. My wife's income went from like a decent amount to nothing pretty much overnight. And I went, I've got to do something. A thing came up and I went, and literally I remember myself filling out this form that they sent out for just during this time. It's on a temporary contract. And I filled it out and it was different roles that you can do. And I was like, which ones could I do? Okay, I could do it. Literally, it was pretty much security. I was like, I could do some admin stuff, but that would like, no. And then I saw the security and I was like, I really, really don't want to do that. But you know what? My why is bigger than the what. And so I went, okay, cool, security. And literally a week later, they called me and I was hired that same day when they talked to me because obviously I have that experience. And I went, okay, well, my why. Why am I doing this? I'm doing this so that one, I can go help people. I can be there for people in their time of need. If it gets really crazy, I can be there. I've got training. And two, I'm going to meet people. And I've met so many people like coming up on episodes of, Fight the Burnout. There's going to be episodes with some paramedics here in New Zealand because I've met paramedics. While I'm there, I'm working on getting some nurses to come on the show. And I'm meeting people, I'm experiencing things. Literally today, my wife and I went down to go take the dogs to get groomed. And we're driving back, ambulance pulled up next to us, and I look over, and it's one of the ladies that I've met by working at the hospital. I rolled the window down, and I said, I thought I recognized you. And so we sat there and chatted at the red light. And I'm like, that's the thing is when you're focused on those little things, on the little whys. Like I'm literally focused on the little whys every day that I'm there because I'm not doing a whole lot. It's not super busy. In all honesty, it's really boring. But I make it not boring by focusing on those little whys like you talked about. Why am I here? I need to make some extra money. There's a why. And it's not a bad why.
And you're also approaching it differently than you did when you did it at the beginning of your career.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I just focus on it. And when I have those times, like yesterday, I was back there, I was like, man, today is a hard day. And I was like, okay, Chris, focus on why you're here. You're here to make some more money. You're here to meet people. And you're here to just experience new things and learn from the situation. I was like, okay, cool. Started focusing on that. And, the little whys are big. And, I think also, like you said, so many of us beat ourselves up on needing to figure out our why. And
sometimes if we relax, it just comes.
Yeah, instead of just experiencing new things. I know, like after I did my motorcycle trip, refining myself after the police, I was like, what am I going to do? And I started to beat myself up. And I was like, okay, I enjoy fitness. I enjoy training. I'm going to go train people because I know how much it helped me with my mental health. So I started down that track. And now I've ended up more of a performance coach with a little bit of fitness. And so, it's...
And that's evolution. That's part of what makes us different from monkeys.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though monkeys do have evolution, by the way.
Yeah, they do. That is true. That is true. So V, so tell me, so what is your number one piece of advice for listeners when it comes to them empowering themselves?
Number one. Well, we've been through it, but the two things. Mm-hmm. Check your focus. So when you feel bad, what am I focusing on right now? Right? What can I focus on instead? And as an aside to that, what can I focus on is gratitude. one of the exercises I always give my clients is to write a list of 101 things you're grateful for.
It's hard.
Right? It's very hard.
101 things. I mean, getting to 10 things can be hard.
Yeah. But you may or may not know him, Keith Cunningham.
Yep. He was at Business Mastery.
Yes, and he's an amazing speaker, and I don't think he shares that at Business Mastery anymore, but he shared that this is what got him out of suicidal depression after he went bankrupt. He wrote a list of 100 things he was grateful for, and then he had this list on these in his wallet, right? Yeah. 10 by 10, and every time he felt bad, he would read a list. So there's a little bit of discipline involved, and of course these days we don't really do wallets and and cards.
Yeah.
Right, but you can put it on your phone.
And it's interesting you say that. I say this to my clients as well. I say this to people that are it's interesting now that I bet you see it as well now that you're a coach, and you can identify when they're just going through that kind of stuff and they're focused on the wrong things. And I'll be at work and there'll be someone going, complaining about something. I'll be like, but you're alive. I literally turn to them because that's the simplest thing to focus on that goes, oh, actually I am. You're healthy. And they go, it hits them from left field and they're like, whoa, what the, but it is, it's the same. It's shifting it. And it's awesome to hear that. So many people, it's just like, it just shifted. The one I love, which is shifting negative into a positive. Find the positive out of every situation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good one. There's the one that you hear a lot at the moment is I'm stuck at home or I'm safe at home.
Yeah.
3 letters.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I did Landmark, and they one of the things they say, you can change the meaning of a sentence by adding, subtracting, or changing one word.
Yep.
I have to do schoolwork. I get to do schoolwork.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And words are so powerful. I love words. Yeah. It's interesting to me speaking many languages as well, but words are awesome.
Yeah, they are. Words are amazing. Like, you think about if we got rid of the word of anxiety, would there be anxiety around?
Well. We could do an entire other podcast on just that.
I know we could. I know, it's an interesting thing though. It's like, I tell, because obviously people, wanting to perform in fitness people say try so much. And I remember listening to one of Tony's podcasts, and he goes, trying is uncertainty. And trying is giving yourself an excuse to not succeed. And so I literally say this to my clients all the time. I'm like, get rid of try. If you got rid of the word try, would you try at things, or would you just say, yeah, I'm going to do it, and you do it?
Yeah.
Or you'd say, no, I'm not going to do it, and you won't do it.
Yeah.
Which one is it? Don't try, just do.
Well, Yoda said it well, right?
yeah, it is true. The language is so funny. So V, getting to the end of the interview here, but I want obviously people will have got a lot out of this. You do a lot of coaching with people and empowering people. So if somebody's looking for your services, or they want to pick your brain, or they want to talk to you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with
you? Well, one of the best way is finding me on Facebook. So my name is just this way, Veronique, and then Ficheux. It's Ficheux. I'm fairly easy to find. The other way is you can email me at Veronique at yournextwave.life.
Yournextwave.life. Cool.
Right. And I have a website that I use mostly for healing work that I do in Bali. It's called meetveronique.com.
Oh, perfect. Cool. So all of those, we'll put them into the description below, so everybody they have them in case they want to reach out to you, get your services, or just ask you some questions.
Cool. No problem.
I do appreciate that, and I appreciate you for being on the show. The last question I have for you is, what is one thing, your top tip you would tell viewers to help prevent or counter burnout?
My top tip is to take time for yourself.
Mm.
So I'll give you an example about what I do. And of course, it helps that I have a child who's nearly 16, so he doesn't want that much time with mom these days. But dinner time, like 6:30 to 8:30 minimum, that's his time. Right? So that's time where I close down the computer or we watch a movie, but I do not do any work during those times.
Yeah.
And that creates structure around which I will rarely vary. I usually do not accept calls at 6 or 6:30 for that reason. It's like, no, this is my time. And it's really important to have some.
Mm.
So is it, well, between 8 and 8:30 a.m., I walk the dog, or I have a half-hour meditation every day, or I need to move, I take a run every day. Make sure this is the beginning of putting the oxygen mask on you. And that is my top tip. Find a couple of things that are important to you and that make you feel grounded in this life.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say you got to fill that tank up. It's
Yep.
you got to, because we're getting pulled from so many different directions that our tank is constantly being emptied, but we need to top it up.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing. Scheduling and you time.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah, but that scheduling needs to be pretty much immutable.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to say, oh, well, it's only my appointment with myself. I can speak to the boss instead. No.
It's the most important. I took Tony's triad, his, focus, language and body language or physiology.
Physiology.
And I cut it and I turned it into a pyramid and I put layers in it. And the bottom layer is self. You look after yourself over everybody else. You put yourself first. When you need to put yourself first, you put it first. You always have some sort of self thing during the day. Then it's your close family, your friends, your loved ones, the ones that you hold the tightest. And then at the top of that, the very tip, little tiny bit, is work and everybody else. Because if you don't run, and I find if you don't run in that, then you're always draining yourself, and then you're not actually there for those top layers fully, and then you feel like you're burned out. You're burning yourself out even more because you're not giving your all that you want, that you can.
And then you become resentful.
Yeah.
And so that's also a negative energy you don't want to be in. Is constantly seeking to raise your vibration also makes a big difference. I have one more to add.
Cool.
Be the guardian of your mind.
The garden.
As in, be very careful what you let in.
Yep.
Right.
Especially at the moment with COVID and Corona going around.
I know.
Negativity. Until COVID started, I hadn't looked at the news or watched the news in like 5 years.
Oh my goodness.
Because the reason I didn't was because I was actually at a job the news reported on, like as a cop, and they completely threw it out of proportion and they didn't say the actual truth. And I went, no, I'm done with you. I'm done with the news. I'm done with the media. I'm not looking at it anymore because it just puts me in a shit mood.
Yeah.
So I didn't. And so now COVID came up and I found myself again, not being the guard of my mind and going, oh my, and then getting angry. I was like, okay, I need to stop again.
Yeah. I there's a part of my business is in US real estate. So I keep an eye on that. Right. Yeah. And yes, I find myself going down this rabbit hole really easily. So now I stand guard. I'm like, okay, I'm done. I've had this much time. That's enough.
Yeah. No, I like that. So V, awesome. Thank you very much for being on the show today.
Thank you. We need to do another call where I can teach you how to tap.
Yes,
not enough time today.
We do. I definitely agree with that one. I look forward to that one. So as far as Fight the Burnout, this podcast, as everybody knows, goes live at least every Friday morning New Zealand time at 6 a.m. We do a new episode, launch a new episode. If you enjoy this, give us a comment, give us a review, like, subscribe, do all the fun things that to help support us so we can keep doing more of these, keep reaching out to people. And if there's anybody that any of the viewers believe that we should have on the show or would like to hear from, let us know and we'll reach out to them and find out. But until next time, guys, remember, I always say train hard, test easy. And that always goes for your mind as well. You know, the mind, you got to train the mind so that when you get those tested times, you know, it's easy for you. You know, it's easier than last time. So until next time, guys, thank you very much for listening. Love you all.